one of the most watched sporting events in the world, the Champions League, is planned to take place in St. Petersburg, Russia, in a few months' time. This May, in fact. It's the biggest club trophy in football, watched by hundreds of millions around the world, as you'd expect. It's bigger than the Rugby World Cup, Wimbledon, the Super Bowl. It's a huge PR coup for Putin to have secured it. But now, European football's governing body, UEFA, is considering moving the venue elsewhere. The Foreign Secretary, Liz Truss, has called on English clubs to boycott the Champions League final amid the Ukraine crisis. Boris Johnson even backed calls for the game to be taken away from Russia yesterday in Parliament. We can see that here.
That he is going to end up with a Russia that is poorer as a result of the sanctions that the world will implement. A Russia that is more isolated. A Russia that has pariah status, Mr. Speaker. No chance of holding football tournaments in a Russia that invades sovereign countries, Mr. Speaker.
Aidan Magee, it's not going to happen, is it?
No, it's certainly not. I mean, it's not in Boris Johnson's gift to actually remove a Champions League final from anywhere. But in totality, no, I don't think it's going to happen. I think they will have to remove it. I have some sympathy with UEFA here. They get lots of things wrong, Colin, when it comes to football governance. They have done consistently alongside FIFA, who govern the world football. Well, they're in charge of world football governance, whereas UEFA is in charge of Europe. But in the last 20 years, they've got lots of things wrong, and this is not their fault. They've got their house in order. They've arranged for the football to take place at various different venues. It has to be done in advance, and then suddenly they're awashed with a geopolitical dynamics, and it means that they're going to have to change things, but it's not their fault.
That's part of the gig, isn't it? I mean, you know, politics and sport, I know people say they shouldn't mix, but they often do mix, and you've got to make a call. By the way, apologies if you are listening on DAB radio, but we were just showing pictures of the St. Petersburg Stadium, if you were wondering what you were looking at there. I mean, I can understand there's going to be logistical problems. Contracts will have been signed with TV companies, caterers, etc., etc., etc. But when it comes to it, the idea, for instance, there are British teams still in the Champions League. Imagine if one of those teams went to the final in St. Petersburg while there's a war raging and British anti-tank weapons are being fired at Russian tanks. You wouldn't feel entirely safe as a British football fan going to St. Petersburg, would you now?
Certainly not, but I mean, it was also moved from St. Petersburg last year because of COVID restrictions. So with everything that's going on there now and the tanks arriving in Donbass, I would think that's a compelling case now to move it. The problem for UEFA, though, is that a lot of their clubs and UEFA itself is awash with Russian money. Gazprom put £30 million a year in terms of sponsorship. In fact, someone said to me this morning it was actually close to £40 million. They're going to extend that into further, well, there are plans to extend that commercial deal into other UEFA competitions, such as the Europa League and the UEFA Conference League. So there's that to consider. Manchester United's got a huge deal with Aeroflot, the Russian airline. So that is a consideration. But to be clear, though, Colin, again, UEFA will insist that these deals are with individual companies that happen to be from a certain part of the world. They're not necessarily a deal with Russia. Yes, I know that Putin has his hands in Gazprom. Yes, of course he does. But it's still an individual deal, commercial deal with the company, not the country. No more than any, if you look at any sponsor of any English club, you don't look at where it comes from. You look at where the company is stated, whether they can pay the money. So I do have some sympathy for UEFA here, but it will move. There's plenty of options as well. I think London is well placed to take on a Champions League.
I was going to say, if not St. Petersburg, then where?
No, they made so much money, Colin, when they came in 2011. Manchester United against Barcelona. I mean, you were just sort of. I walked down Wembley Way. There was commercialism everywhere. £30 for a programme. To be clear, a programme is a book. It's a magazine. £30, and that was 11 years ago. They made so much money. They then found an excuse to hold another Champions League final 2 years later at Wembley, which is very quick because they made so much money 2 years earlier. They made up some tenuous link about it being the FA's anniversary or something like that. So they held the Champions League final there. They would love to come back to Wembley. The issue there is that they have Football League playoff finals taking place. They could probably move a couple of days down the line, or maybe a little bit, or brought forward a couple of days. But also, Arsenal's well capable of holding a Champions League final of 60,000. Same at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium, even newer stadium. Then you've got your London Stadium, 66,000. London, it has plenty of options, but there are also many capable bidders around Europe as well.
Aidan, appreciate you coming in. Nice to see you. Thanks a lot.